What were you guys talking about? The Heat?
The Heat.
No, I was getting the music started. You guys were talking about the Heat?
Yes, the Heat.
Might be interesting to talk about on the show. Unless you guys talking a lot, like, while we're getting ready for the show and stuff? That's shit we should be talking about on the show.
Dude, it's just the Heat.
Look, you see the movie we're doing tonight? There's not a lot of material here to fill the show. I was driving down Central the other day. I saw you outside talking to some dude on the sidewalk. What were you talking to him about? Outside the pub. You were talking to somebody. New deal. I'm going to start instituting fines when you guys are having conversations that we could be having here on the show. Save it. That's material.
Dude, what is this, like some 60s, 70s rock band? James Brown?
Look, this ends here. We got a show to do. You ready to hit record here soon? Let's.
Yeah, we already. I hit record like 5 minutes ago.
What?
Yeah, that's right. I want the whole world to know.
Well, boys, how's it finally feel to be out of that submarine, huh? Man, nice, isn't it? Now that I've taken y'all's blindfolds off, I'm not quite ready to reveal to you guys where we're at. Especially the way you're running your lips around town. I have zero confidence you can keep a secret.
Well, Loose Lips did sink the submarine.
They did. That's what sunk the US 469. U-5469.
U-469.
U-469. Deep in international waters.
No, actually, I think Mincy got drunk and rammed it into the.
They let the doctor. They let the doctor.
Out
into the
just unimaginable.
The pressure in the seaman's head was just unimaginable. But you guys like it so far. I'm not going to reveal where we are, but just between us ladies here, before we go live, I don't want to say anything that can get us pinpointed on a map, but just between us, we are deep within a freshly drilled cave behind the forehead of Abraham Lincoln on Mount Rushmore. Keep it to yourself.
But
don't tell anybody.
You just told everybody.
Pardon?
Like everybody. You told like everybody, like exactly.
You're recording?
Yeah. You never listen to anything that we say.
No, I don't listen to you guys. I should start. And I should stop drinking so much whiskey before the show. Fuck.
Functional alcoholism.
God, that must be nice.
I was about to say, what part is the function here?
Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday Night Cigar Club podcast. What a night. We have come here to drink beer, smoke cigars, and talk all things Rowdy Roddy Piper.
It's kind of a sad night.
It is kind of a sad night.
It really is.
A little bummed out, to be honest. First of all, before we started, you can notice we've got Fritz Beer playing here tonight. Realized at the end of last week's episode, into the third hour, we never started Fritz's music. And I couldn't figure out why and how it was a miss, but then I remembered, it dawned on me. We had Mincy start off us with a song last week.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the music playing because I didn't want to, compete with that.
And that beautiful Irish tenor.
Irish tenor of his, which I didn't know he was going to go Irish. That stunned me as much as you guys.
Apparently that was the only way he knows how to sing a song. I mean, like, everything he sings, it starts off and it ends up with that Irish.
It does.
That's even when he's doing NWA songs.
Exactly.
So we do have Fritz here to get us through tonight. It is kind of a sad night. I mean, we're not going to make it sad, but it is hard to feel sad about... I never get too bummed out when people I don't know personally die.
Yeah.
But when it's someone like Rowdy Roddy Piper, who's been there since you were a kid in many different facets of your life as a kid, whether it be wrestling, whether it be movies.
Yeah.
He was just one of those guys who was always around, and he was just always such a badass. And he just kind of was my first introduction to kind of smartassery.
Yeah.
And kind of wit. And I didn't know what those things were at the time, but I knew he was different. He wasn't just all machismo, and the guy is a sassy, crafty little, motherfucker in and out of the ring.
Yeah.
And he had his funeral yesterday, sadly. So we'll eventually tonight run out of beers and cigars. We won't run out of, we'll
Roddy
never run out of
tales.
love in our hearts for this guy. He's one of a kind, and we did the Amanda Peterson Memorial, but she was just an actress in a movie that we really liked, and she just seemed like she was gone way too soon. I mean, Rowdy seemed like a guy, all these wrestlers seem like they're in fairly good shape, and they hit that 60 age, and it's just...
Well, he lived a rough,
crapshoot.
a hard 61.
Did he? Because I don't know much about it.
Yeah, he was pretty hard into the drugs for a while.
Was he?
Yeah.
Okay, see, I never knew that.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not. Maybe it's one of those.
Painkillers, the booze. I mean, and
Painkillers is always the big one
Yeah.
with those guys.
And the thing I liked about it is that he was pretty open about it.
Yeah, they were actually after he had just, they've been talking about this a lot, and there is no. They get up there and they perform, but unlike most a normal professional athlete, these guys are constantly on the road. They're constantly performing. It's not like they have a season.
There's no off season.
There's no off season.
They travel like 300 days a year.
And everybody looks. I'm sorry for interrupting. Everybody thinks of Raw and SmackDown, the big marquee shows, but that's not talking about the constant
The house shows.
deluge of the house shows. I'll never forget. I had stopped following wrestling for a while and got back into it. And a friend of mine went to a little house show in Waco, Texas, of everything. And they had all the stars there, all the big names. I was just surprised at how many big names were actually from. It was amazing. So it's a job. It's a job.
And they still do those house shows. My little brother-in-law, he's 30 now, but he went to a Waco show. This would be back in the what they call it, the 90s Stone Cold age. It's the
Attitude Era.
Attitude Era. He went to Waco, and Undertaker was doing a house show, and they had just appeared on Cigar Aficionado magazine.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of getting into cigars, and he got Undertaker to sign my
That's badass.
Aficionado magazine. But yeah, these guys work their asses off, and their bodies just, appreciate wrestling for the entertainment it is or not. You can't watch it and not appreciate what these guys put their bodies through.
Yeah.
But Roddy always seemed like a guy never openly, at least what I got, bitter about. I know he and McMahon had some issues, but he always seemed to be one that was fan first. Extremely fan first. I never read anything where fans just weren't blown away. Over the last few years, he'd started doing horror conventions, and I regret now he did Texas Frightmare 2 years ago. Maybe it was the first one he did with Keith David, where they did a They Live. Meet them both, and
that would have been fun.
Kicking myself in the ass. I was like, you know what? It wasn't a good time financially or whatever. I'll go next time they do it.
Yeah.
And you never know when there's not going to be a next time.
Never know.
So, he's one of a kind, just like we like him. And yesterday was his funeral, sadly. So tonight we're going to touch upon one of his lesser seen films. To be honest, I couldn't do They Live. It's cliche, but it's too soon. I don't think I could watch it with dry eyes.
Yeah.
That movie meant so much to me growing up. For personal reasons, who I was with.
I noticed you're wearing the Obey shirt.
I am in tribute. I do not have a Hell Comes to Frogtown t-shirt. I might look for one now. But I am wearing my I have a whole closet full of these t-shirts.
Now you were saying
I did go looking for the Rowdy T-shirt, but I couldn't. I wasn't.
The Hot Rod?
Yeah,
the Hot Rod. You were saying that
You could have at least worn your kilt.
I know I should have.
Tuttle actually wears a kilt quite frequently.
It's especially in this heat.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I'm sitting across from you. So, see,
Now-
look, we're talking about heat.
Oh,
I told you.
Told
you this would come up.
I
I
hate
told
proving
you.
you right.
Yeah.
Now you're saying They Live was
It just
kind of a-
it was one of
kind
the
of-
very first genre films that I saw where I was starting to recognize filmmaking and
like the production side.
the production side of it.
Yeah.
And I watched it with my Uncle Dave, who up in Ohio, I was staying with him for this couple weeks in the summer, and he introduced me to pretty much late night horror movies. And I just remember just drooling and immediately rewinding it and watching it again. Like that movie just hit me at the perfect
Yeah.
time. And I just and of course that mixed wrestling in it, which was horror movies and wrestling were my youth.
Yeah.
If it wasn't an action movie, a horror movie, or wrestling, I was not interested in it at all.
I was surprised because I went back and revisited it a few months back, and I was surprised at how well it held up. Outside of the, outside of the clothing, everything else was still on point. I really appreciate that.
Well, we're going to go to They Live at some point down the line. I told everybody at the beginning, we're going to hit every Carpenter film eventually and do it right, but I honestly don't think I could keep a dry eye doing it, which sounds stupid. I never met the guy. And I'm not an overly sappy.
That's what's so weird is that I'm kind of the same way. I don't get starstruck that much. But
I get starstruck when I meet someone that I get a little kerflumped. What'd you call it last? Perplexed? Flummoxed. I get a little flummoxed. But as far as like if they died, I don't know them. I could.
I remember the first time I heard it was a text, in the group text, and man, I just felt really, really down, and that was a little surprising, but man, that sucks.
I should also say it stings a bit just that it happened, but it also stings a bit that we tried real hard a while back to get a film off the ground. We're going to take a different approach to getting this film made, but it's
still in the bullpen.
As a filmmaker, there's a film that we're really chomping at the bit to make, and it's still very much in the works. Go to Kickstarter and search Angel Dust. You can learn all about it. But the opening of the thing is a spoof on They Live, where I'm dressed up like Rowdy Piper, and I'm stumbling around downtown Temple with the sunglasses looking around. But I actually reached out to Rowdy Piper because we wanted to get a money number because I wanted him to bring him for a cameo. We have a huge, I don't want to give too much away, but a huge wrestling scene.
It would have been so perfect.
Everybody who read it was like, you got to get Rowdy Roddy. It's a Carpenter tribute film in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But it's so obvious when you read it. I wrote the referee in this wrestling match. Think Escape from New York wrestling match, just very done differently. But Rowdy Roddy's got to be the ref.
Yeah.
I sent him an email. And to his then agent, I found out later I was sent to the wrong person. Yeah. But we wanted to bring Rowdy Roddy down for a day. And again, you never even think that's not going to be an option next week.
Especially, he was only 61.
So
I'm pretty sure it was 61.
Tonight, as we talk about the movie Hell Comes to Frogtown, we're going to toast his memory the only way we know how. TNCC style. We're going to really give this film its just desserts. Do you guys have any, before we start, do you guys have any favorite Rowdy Piper moments from, mine's obvious, They Live. I was a wrestling fan, but that movie just completely blew my mind on so many ways. And his character of Nada just... maybe because I was so used to watching action films, like he was such a weird, this loner, this it was basically a western, this man with no name who stumbles into this town. Like I just never seen anything like that, and I thought Piper did such a good job, and he was so different than I'd seen in the ring.
Yeah,
he's so much like in this movie. He's so Rowdy Piper.
Yeah.
Everything is exaggerated. Everything's crazy and Looney Tunes.
Yeah,
but in They Live, he was really subtle. I mean, little glimpses would come out, but it was also my first maybe experience of seeing somebody that I knew from one area of life cross over into acting. And I'm a kid at this point. I'm not I'm like what,
and it kind of really
12 maybe, and it's like holy shit, like this is a guy I know as one thing,
and now he's acting
as something totally different. And I want to get into, once we're done talking about the movie, I want to get into why that transition from wrestler to actor. It should be such a natural thing, but not a lot of guys have pulled it off, and why not? But what are y'all, when you think Rowdy Roddy, like what goes through your noggins?
Oh man, I'm like you. I think They Live. That was kind of that.
You weren't a huge wrestling kid, were you?
I was, but it was just kind of off and on. I mean, when I think Rowdy Roddy, man, I think going back to WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And those first few WrestleManias were just amazing. I mean, I know that,
there wasn't anything like it.
Yeah,
It
I
was
mean, they
so-
started when we saw the first WrestleMania.
We saw the first one, yeah.
So you're just like, back in the day, this whole concept, this, huge, long, drawn out wrestle fest, WrestleMania.
And it was just
Wait, you mean there's more of it? It's still going on for hours? Oh my God, I love this.
Yeah, and it was also in the glory day of when the wrestlers just looked nothing like.
Yeah.
I mean, you had the honky tonk man who was like this fat, greasy Elvis, like completely out of shape, pear shaped, crazy, and he was like the most threatening force to Hulk Hogan.
Oh yeah, he was
the
like
honky tonk man.
Yeah, he was the heat. I mean, he was like the
Nowadays,
enforcer.
when you've got just all the, everyone wears black, everyone has basically the same jacked up physique. Like this was the days when like Tugboat and
Avalanche
and even like Junkyard Dog and like the big heroes, Big John Studd and those guys, they weren't chiseled, ripped. They were just big dudes that could do some really crazy strength stuff. But you were still under this kind of guise as a kid that this was real, and it's like it was like a different movie every week with the same players, and it was. But They Live was definitely it for me. Wrestling, They Live, same kind of.
Yeah, I mean it's Rowdy was such a kind of a transcendent personality because I mean like the WrestleMania's great, the feud with Mr. T. I mean, come on, man. That as a kid, I'm torn. I like Roddy. I love Mr. T. Mommy and Daddy are fighting.
Yeah, that brought in same thing with Rocky and Mr. T. It was like it was so hard to go against Mr. T, but Mr. T's credit, he made you hate him.
I think what I've really appreciated about Roddy though is that after he got out of wrestling, was just disappeared from the media eye for a while.
He did.
And then came back, and I just loved hearing the guy talk because he's one of the few people that I thought, wasn't really bullshitting you. I mean, maybe he was. And he's a wrestler, he's an entertainer, so they make their money telling stories.
He always had a very strong air of authenticity as far as I think I have a fairly good bullshit barometer when it comes to celebrity. Like you can just kind of tell.
Yeah.
But over the last week, I've seen so many of on Facebook, horror people, convention people that go to conventions, that run the conventions, just write these huge, write-ups on just how this guy really extended himself to fans, to, especially to like handicap fans that would come up, like picking kids up out of their wheelchairs and like, just going the extra.
Roddy had a podcast, right?
I do. I never listened to it.
Well, that's because it got taken off.
There'd be time.
Apparently,
I know he ran into some stuff with Vince
and Stone Cold.
There at the very end.
Yeah,
are we ever going to find out what happened there, or?
I heard an interview with Roddy, and he never really got into a lot of the detail on what was told to him, other than
like a week or two before he died.
Yeah, other than it, he basically got to poking fun at Stone Cold, and then a short time later, an exec from WWE basically said, "You're not going to do that, and by the way, we're pulling your podcast,
and you can't do a podcast anywhere else."
They shut him down. Because
he was on the big one, what, Podcast One, or
And I don't know what I missed it, so I don't know what it was said. I heard him, and see, that's one of the things I liked about it is that he was explaining his side, not necessarily apologizing for anything that he did, but just explaining it kind of like what was told to him. Like I said, he's one of those guys that it's like a snake charmer. I'll believe anything that he says, and I don't know whether that's good or bad.
Well, when Carpenter was asked about casting him, he always in They Live, he always said, he just came across as he was. He was a working man. You could tell by his hands, like he was a working man that could do things in the film that would be believable.
Yeah.
But he's like, Roddy was a real guy. He wasn't Hulk Hogan. He wasn't this
caricature.
He wasn't this caricature. He was actually Rowdy Roddy. So when you watch him in They Live, and at certain moments in Comes To Frogtown, where he dials it down, like you can see the guy's actually trying to kind of rein in this nice little performance. But if you let him go big, he's gonna go fucking big.
What are you talking about, Kate?
Because he's a big guy.
Yeah.
You give him a license, he's going to poke you in the eyes. I mean, that's just that's what he does. But he's so much fun. I wish he had made so much more movies. I totally forgot till you said this. You were stuck in an airport last week or so, right after he died.
Yeah.
And I totally forgot. Forever ago, I had texted you a link. I'm like, have you ever heard of this failed 80s television pilot called Tag Team?
It's an episode pilot of Awesome is what
It's
it
a
is.
detective show. Have you heard of it?
I have.
Where Rowdy Roddy and Jesse Ventura are wrestlers, and they won't take a fall in the big match.
Right.
So the guy who owns the wrestling, his wife gets rid of him. So they become cops, where they basically just go around wrestling everybody. It's on YouTube. Check it out. That's all I'll say. The guy should have done more.
Yeah. It was great.
So Roddy, here's to you. I'm not going to do our ceremonial pouring of.
Apparently have no leak-proof vessels.
With Amanda Peterson, we poured some of our liquor out into a stinky ashtray, and it started leaking all over the
And
table.
then the stinky ashtray started pouring Amanda Peterson out on us.
First of all, I had to convince you two guys to pour out some of your beer.
But it's hot.
It's like you didn't want to do too much, and it's like, well, we didn't like her that much. But no, the Tuesday Night Cigar Club is pro Rowdy Roddy Piper. Strong vibes of positivity to his family. Just a really, what's seemingly just a really unique individual.
Yeah.
And we love unique individuals here.
You brought decades of happiness to people.
He
man.
did, and to us. So tonight's all about that.